We now move on to our final learning goal of this presentation: why people will choose to invest in Bitcoin as time goes on. Here we'll quickly look at a cartoon that teaches economics to children and adults. It is a show that aims to teach people about the merit of Bitcoin. The name of the show is called The Tuttle Twins, which we highly recommend to check out. In this episode, they meet the anonymous creator of Bitcoin.
Paper money makes so much sense.
But then governments became greedy, and instead of making the same amount of paper money as gold, they just started printing new money out of thin air.
Paper money makes no sense.
People worked their whole lives saving paper money, only to lose everything to inflation when the government made creating money easy.
That sounds like the wampum seashells all over again.
When money is easy to make, society begins to break.
So how do we make money that's easy to carry but hard to create?
Well, one solution is Bitcoin. Back in 2008, I became fed up with government money, with the corruption, the manipulation, so I created a digital currency.
Money you keep on a computer, right?
Exactly. Digital money that can be sent directly from one person to another without any bank or government involved. And the best part? It's hard money.
The guy who dissed my gummy bears thinks computer money is hard.
It's the hardest money ever invented.
Bitcoin is very hard to make more of. Each new coin gets added to the supply only after a computer works very hard to solve a math problem, where there's no shortcut and solving it costs a lot of energy and time.
Okay, but if it's on a computer, can't I just copy and paste?
Not with Bitcoin. You see, there's a public record of every Bitcoin ever created. It's called the blockchain. It's like a puzzle, and each Bitcoin has its own unique shape. And because everyone has a copy of the public record, if someone tries to fake a Bitcoin, it won't fit the puzzle and will be rejected by the network before anyone can use it. That's why Bitcoin is so safe from criminals and the government.
You said criminals twice.
And unlike dollars, which can be printed endlessly, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. It's almost impossible to inflate. The only way to get it is to earn it or buy it from someone who has.
Aha!
No offense, but if you control Bitcoin, couldn't you manipulate it just like the government?
I don't control it. No one person does. It's controlled by a public network of Bitcoin users that anyone can join. So if someone wanted to change something in Bitcoin's code, they would need to get the majority of the millions of Bitcoin users to agree to it, or the change doesn't happen. And when has the majority of us agreed on anything?
One-ply toilet paper is garbage.
Touché.
Wow, I didn't know made-up money could make so much sense.
Today, millions of people send Bitcoin instantly and cheaply to each other around the world without any bank or government involved. And because Bitcoin is hard money you can't just print more of, the more people who use it, the more valuable it becomes.
Emily, if we take Lyle's Bitcoin, we could be rich.
I could pay for college entirely. You could outsource your movie and pay to have your name in the credits.
Slow down. I'm not saying that Bitcoin will make you rich quick or even at all. Right now, only about 1% of the world owns Bitcoin. And because it's still being adopted, some days it goes up and even down.
Also, investments, though potentially lucrative, can be risky.
Only invest what you're willing to lose. We know. Wow, I think I get it. Good money should be easy to use, but hard to create.
And because Bitcoin is digital, it's fast and cheap to use. And the blockchain makes it hard to inflate.
Thanks, Mr. Satoshi.
Let's talk about Bitcoin scarcity. Bitcoin is programmed to have a maximum supply of 21 million coins. This limit is hard-coded into the Bitcoin protocol and cannot be changed. This fixed supply contrasts with many other alternative digital currencies, and obviously are fiat currencies that get printed to infinity. The rules governing Bitcoin scarcity are encoded in the protocol and are maintained by a decentralized network of computer nodes. This ensures that the scarcity is not subject to change by any central authority. To further ensure scarcity, Bitcoin is mined using a protocol called proof of work. The mining process involves brute force, random number guessing mathematical problems, which requires both time and energy. Mining requires significant computational power, which consumes a substantial amount of electricity. The energy-intensive nature of mining mirrors the extraction processes of precious metals like physical gold. As the financial reward for mining gets cut in half every 4 years, miners are incentivized to find cheaper, more efficient, and more renewable forms of energy to be more profitable. Despite its controversy, Bitcoin mining is a net positive for the environment. Bitcoin mining is another rabbit hole in itself. It takes multiple hours to begin to understand how it could benefit the environment and communities that surround miners. In addition to needing energy, solving these problems also takes time. The time needed for mining is not just a function of computational difficulty, but also of the overall competition among miners. New Bitcoin are mined at a decreasing and predictable rate. This ensures that there is no sudden influx of coins that could devalue the existing supply. Approximately every 4 years, the reward for mining a new block is cut in half. This not only extends the time it will take to mine all 21 million Bitcoin, but also makes it progressively more challenging and time-consuming to mine new coins. By using real-world finite resources like time and energy to mine it, Bitcoin's design effectively transmutes scarcity from the physical realm into the digital realm. Bitcoin's durability. Bitcoin operates on a decentralized and transparent technology called the blockchain. The blockchain is a distributed digital ledger that records all transactions in a chronological and irreversible manner. Each block of transactions is cryptographically linked to the previous one, forming a chain. The blockchain's immutability ensures that all transactions are preserved and cannot be tampered with. This feature prevents fraud, counterfeiting, and unauthorized changes to the transaction history. Just to note, a user's identity is not disclosed on the Bitcoin network. Only pseudonyms are shown. Bitcoin's network is decentralized, meaning it operates on a distributed network of nodes maintained by volunteers around the world. This decentralization reduces the risk of a single point of failure and makes it highly resistant to attacks or disruptions. Even if most of the nodes somehow went offline, the network continues to function as long as there is one node running the network. As it is even more decentralized than the internet, it is the most robust computer network in the world, and that's a pretty good starting point for a new global currency. Bitcoin's acceptability. Remembering that the acceptability property consists of a money first being recognized, then verified, and finally able to be accepted. Bitcoin is widely recognized. Each transaction is easy to be verified on the blockchain, and though it isn't yet accepted as legal tender in most countries, adoption is steadily increasing, and so are merchants that are willing to transact with it. Note that adoption is increasing most prevalently in countries that have been oppressed by the dominance of the US dollar. This coincides with the narrative that Bitcoin is the greatest wealth redistribution of all time, as those who benefit the most from the current system are least incentivized to adopt it first. As fiat currencies around the world continue to lose their value, demand for Bitcoin continues to increase. Bitcoin has been made legal tender in El Salvador. In Costa Rica, many circular economies are emerging, allowing citizens to transact freely without the need for any intermediaries or government constraints. And currency crises are causing people to turn to more valuable currencies like Bitcoin and the US dollar. Here is a small look into the Bitcoin adoption taking place in El Salvador.
El Salvador is the first nation in the world to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender.
Bitcoin, en pocas palabras, es el oro digital.
And within the country, something big is happening.
So, Mi Primer Bitcoin is a Bitcoin education project.
And this is the amazing part about Mi Primer Bitcoin, because I'm right now in a school explaining to kids how Bitcoin works and why it is really important.
Whatever happens here will be an example for the world to follow. And education will be the foundation of ensuring that that's a positive example.
I've seen like the little vendors out in the street already accepting Bitcoin.
I try to teach to my little community, and I wanted to make a lot of people proud of this little piece of earth called El Salvador.
In Lugano, Switzerland, many shops and restaurants are accepting Bitcoin as payment. As of July 2023, the SEC has listed Bitcoin as a commodity, while listing all other cryptocurrencies as unregistered securities. This recognition as a global asset is encouraging for its adoption. Regardless, the majority of the world hasn't adopted Bitcoin. Here's a visualization to show where approximately the world may stand in its journey to adopting Bitcoin. Bitcoin's portability. The Bitcoin network is accessible to anyone with an internet connection, and in some countries, you can access it via SMS without the need for internet. This global accessibility means that Bitcoin can be sent or received across borders without the need for intermediaries, currency conversions, or delays associated with traditional cross-border transactions. Unlike gold, it is unseizable if you wish to flee your country. The unmatched portability of this asset truly allows one to be self-sovereign with their wealth. All you need is a phone, or for more security, a hardware wallet and a small PIN code. As a backup, users are able to privately record and store a 12 to 24 word seed phrase to access their funds. This allows you to regain access to your wealth if you ever lose your device. Bitcoin's divisibility. Bitcoin is divisible down to 8 decimal places, with the smallest unit known as a Satoshi. One full Bitcoin is equal to 100 million Satoshis. This high degree of divisibility allows for microtransactions, providing flexibility for users to transact at different price levels. Its divisibility allows for the concept of fractional ownership, meaning individuals can own a fraction of a whole Bitcoin. This makes Bitcoin more accessible to a broader range of people, as they can invest or hold value in smaller increments. Its divisibility to 8 decimal places is just on the first layer of the protocol. On the layer 2, Satoshis can be divided even further. This enables a Bitcoin to be divided infinitely. To illustrate Bitcoin's divisibility further, let's compare it to our current inflationary monetary system. The circle on your left illustrates the nature of our current monetary system, where the supply of money can be forever increased, which in turn decreases the value of each individual unit of that system over time. You can imagine it like a balloon that continues inflating, while the image on your right illustrates the nature of a Bitcoin standard, where the supply is a fixed whole, yet can be infinitely divided, allowing each individual unit to not only retain its full value, but to increase it as Bitcoin becomes more scarce over time. We know this concept can be a little bit difficult to comprehend, so let's further illustrate its divisibility with some quick math. Let's pretend you own the smallest denomination of a fiat currency, like 1 cent as seen here. Here, the total supply of money is only $1 billion. That 1 cent is looking rather valuable at the moment. But over time, the supply of money is expanded and 3 extra zeros are added. That fraction that you own just got a lot smaller, didn't it? In other words, you lost some major purchasing power. Now let's pretend all 21 million Bitcoin have just been mined. Here is a fraction representing an ownership of Bitcoin. As you can see, the supply of Bitcoin doesn't increase, but the amount you own can get larger or smaller or smaller, as small as you want. Bitcoin provides fractional ownership of the network to everyone who owns even the smallest amount. Because of Bitcoin's fixed supply, whatever amount is held is programmed to store its value over time, thereby honoring the time and energy spent earning it. Bitcoin uniformity. Bitcoin transactions are recorded on a public ledger. This ledger is maintained by a decentralized network of computers called nodes. Every transaction is verified by multiple nodes and added to the blockchain as a block. This process ensures that all participants in the network agree on the validity of transactions, preventing double spending and ensuring the uniformity of the currency. So here's a final look at Bitcoin's properties. Although, for now, we should really give Bitcoin a C in acceptability. But once enough adoption occurs, Bitcoin will excel as a money over time and space more than any other money in human history. Today's world, fiat currencies. What does a non-scarce money do for society over time? Prices go up. Stocks go up. Asset prices go up. The rich win. In an inflationary economic model, the money is more abundant and therefore less valuable than the goods and services it chases. Therefore, prices go up, eventually making living unaffordable for the poor and middle class. Notice how the nature of inflation takes from the poor and middle class and gives to the rich. Inflation is at its essence a silent form of taxation or theft. Our current inflationary system requires perpetual growth on a planet with finite resources and sacrifices long-term sustainability for immediate and reckless consumption. When you operate under easy money, life eventually becomes hard. Tomorrow's world, Bitcoin. What does a perfectly scarce money do for society over time? Prices go down. Stocks go down. Asset prices go down. Savers, or the people, win. If the money was mathematically much scarcer than the goods and services would instead chase the money, and prices would go down. This kind of money is obviously much more preferable for savers. When you operate under hard money, life eventually becomes easy. The implications of scarce money are not to be ignored. It is a fair argument to say that flipping the incentive structure of society on its head would produce some favorable results over a long enough time horizon. As you can see here, scarcity of money will eventually result in asset abundance. A scarce, deflationary money also has positive implications on the environment, as it discourages excess consumption and excess ownership of physical property, which would be very handy during the current housing crisis Canada is currently experiencing. Institutions will warn you that operating an economy on a deflationary currency is dangerous because it slows economic growth. But ask yourself this: have falling prices on TVs slowed their sales? The answer is no. If anything, having prices decrease over time would encourage holders of the currency to spend, as the things they desire are seemingly on sale. The only difference is, the spending would likely be much more intentional. Remember, the claim that inflation is necessary is a narrative that benefits the rich. People in power are paid to preserve this narrative, and this narrative is being pushed to its breaking point. Let's see if prices really do go down relative to Bitcoin. Although Bitcoin hasn't yet proven itself to be a widely used medium of exchange or unit of account, it has proven itself to be an excellent store of value. It is, after all, the greatest appreciating asset of all time. This chart shows exactly why. If you had $1 million on July 9th, 2016, and you could put that million into a house, into the S&P 500, or any other financial vehicle you see here, this is how they would have performed relative to putting that $1 million into Bitcoin, which is pictured as the orange line at the top. Here is the animation for you to see the trend more clearly. After watching this video, one could say with good reason that life is getting cheaper when priced in Bitcoin. You may have noticed in the video real estate falling relative to Bitcoin. Real estate measured in fiat is going up in nominal value. But due to inflation, the real value or purchasing power of fiat is going down. So what does that mean for the real value of real estate? These pictures suggest that it is wise to think about the unit of account or the lens that you choose to measure wealth in. Let's say you knew that the real value of the US or Canadian dollar was going down forever. You wouldn't care if, for example, your house was worth $3 million today, because in a couple of years, though your house may appreciate to $5 million, you know the true purchasing power of those dollars will be significantly less due to inflation. If we measure the value of that same $3 million house in a currency like Bitcoin, which value is appreciating over time, you can conclude that the monetary value of that house is going down when denominated in Bitcoin. If this trend continues, people would most likely want to store their wealth in something that is appreciating in real terms. This would eventually lead to houses being abandoned as investment vehicles, and instead being bought solely for their intrinsic use. Because at the end of the day, people are going to want the asset that best honors their time and energy, and that asset has been, and will continue to be, Bitcoin. As our current system continues to break, Bitcoin demand only continues to grow, while its supply remains inelastic. If you wish to look at Bitcoin's price in terms of US dollars, it is important to look at Bitcoin's trajectory using a logarithmic scale, as seen here, as it accounts for the percentage change in value rather than the absolute value, which is more useful for analyzing long-term trends. As more and more people learn about Bitcoin and how it functions as an excellent long-term store of value, the culture of buying and holding grows, which contributes to Bitcoin's already increasing scarcity. Bitcoin's price in US dollars continues to hit higher lows, which you can observe here. This is crucial to see. In the short term, Bitcoin looks volatile, but if you zoom out enough, you'll notice its price in US dollars is climbing higher and higher approximately every 4 years. Again, here is Bitcoin priced against the US dollar on a zoomed out logarithmic scale. If Bitcoin continues its trajectory for another 5, 10, or 20 years, and all other forms of money, including real estate, continue to leak value against it, where will people eventually want to store their wealth? What do you think will happen to all other stores of value, mediums of exchange, and units of account if this technology continues this trajectory forever? There will be a point where people realize that Bitcoin is going nowhere but up over the long run. Once people wake up to this fact and store their wealth in it, what medium will they then be most willing to accept and exchange with? Once people exchange with it, what unit of account will they ask for goods and services to be measured in? Bitcoin will continue to demonetize all other forms of money until all other money is no longer money. Therefore, if Bitcoin continues to appreciate through its programmed scarcity and increasing demand, sooner or later, everyone will recognize this and will want it over every investment vehicle that does not promise a greater rate of return than Bitcoin. Though it sounds like science fiction, Bitcoin can be thought of as a monetary black hole. The website you see here is a fantastic resource to explore this. You can Google Unchained Capital Gradually Then Suddenly by Parker Lewis. If you are someone who is just learning about money and Bitcoin for the first time, the idea that Bitcoin might be the only form of money in the future must sound absolutely ridiculous to you. But the only way to understand how this could be possible is to continue to study it for multiple hours, and you'll soon realize that nothing, including any government, can stop it. As long as people have a way to access the network, its mass adoption truly is inevitable. Again, we understand how ridiculous this sounds and is a lot to even consider, but we will point you to some additional resources at the end of this presentation to hopefully back up this seemingly outrageous claim. There are thousands of other cryptocurrencies that label themselves as competitors. However, they do not have nearly the size, development, decentralization, or security to compete with the Bitcoin network. Most cryptocurrencies also do not have a fixed supply, meaning they could be printed infinitely, making them no better than the money we use today. The network effect of Bitcoin is assuring to its success. Take, for example, the invention of the Internet. The foundation of the Internet runs on the protocol called TCP/IP. When this protocol first began gaining momentum, other competitors emerged, which were faster and technically superior to TCP/IP. However, due to its massive head start in development and adoption, TCP/IP remained the foundation of the Internet, and still is to this day. The same effect can be seen for Bitcoin, which is the Internet of money. Finally, it is important to also keep in mind that any digital currency governments may offer would not be divorced from their debt burdens, meaning our quality of life would likely take a major hit in order for governments to service their debts. Thank you for completing the last learning goal with us. We will now conclude our first presentation in our two-part series.